Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, the Hawks last night, they just couldn't buy a bucket.
The end. But the beginning for us is going to our happy place, and that is Braves country. Got some news out of Braves country that we're going to talk about with our guy, the man, the myth, the legend who knows all things Braves country, and of course has this Braves podcast right here on our network, Grant McAuley.
And another former colleague of ours is doing big things in the Big Apple. That's coming up next on ATL Day Ones. Don't go anywhere.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen today. And remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate that from you in advance. Today's episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by Bet Online. We had to tell the folks that we're also on Amazon and Roku. If you're tired of listening to us on your mobile device, go ahead, put us on the big screen. Amazon and Roku, we're right there for you. Now, the Hawks, last night, they got run up about a State Farm Arena by the Boston Celtics, and that was one of the things that we talked about as far as what we were looking for, what we're trying to accomplish when it comes to the Hawks. But it just seems like they could not hit a shot, and the Boston Celtics, they made 21 threes and shot 45% from three-point. Like, what do you do with that?
Right. I mean, there's just no word for that. And
Right.
And then on top of it, as if to add insult to injury, you're out here shooting 54% from the field. I mean, it just got progressively worse. And that, when you look down the stat line, it's like everything down the stat line was in favor of the Celtics. And one of the things that really, really was tough was watching the Celtics at the end of the half. There the Hawks are, get a little momentum with Trae Young taking the final shot for the Hawks,
Right.
and actually getting contact. And you're thinking, okay, yes, they're lights out with their threes, but this is a team in the Hawks that has been taking advantage of the paint and really doing some things. So the Hawks are right there, down just 6 points, but nobody got back on defense. And all of a sudden, a three goes in at the buzzer, and you just kind of felt like that was game. Why did you feel like that was game? Because unless there were going to be some major adjustments to their ability to shoot and their lockdown defense, that was game.
Absolutely. When Pritchard can't put it up in there, you saw DeAndre Hunter kind of hesitate a little bit when he whether he kind of thought to himself, I understand because, he's been having some issues with getting into foul trouble early on in games, and I think that he didn't want to do that, so he kind of just put his arm up and kind of jumped from where he was, and Pritchard doggone knocked that bad boy down like it wasn't tomorrow, and that was kind of like game, set, match, essentially. But I think one of the things that really stood out to me last night, though, T, was the fact that Trae Young, they absolutely just went at him, and Derrick White was just able to get into the paint at will. And when you think about how their defense is currently constructed, he has to at least be a little bit more serviceable. And I'm being really nice and careful with my words because my expectations for Trae Young on defense aren't that high. Right. But I think he has to be able to at least stay in front of guys when they start picking on him like that, because Derrick White was able to take full of the advantage last night.
Yeah, and it's funny because on the show yesterday, we were talking about the fact that Marcus Smart was probable. And
Right.
Typically in NBA terms, probable means you're going to play. You're going to move from probable to available right about an hour or two before game time, and boom. When I got the report that said Derrick White was going to be playing, I was like, oh, it might be a long night. Because last season, before I really, really knew about DeJounte Murray's game, I knew about Derrick White's game. And he was the guy that I hoped Travis Schlenk was going to get for the Hawks.
Yep, I remember that conversation. Yep.
And unfortunately, the Celtics got him. And you saw last night why I was like, dang, Sure wish the Hawks would have gotten Derrick White because, yeah, like you said, he was really moving at will. He was really the offense was running. The Celtics offense was pretty much running through him and Jaylen Brown just interchangeably, with even a little help from Jayson Tatum, who surprisingly has improved on his ball handling skills. Right. So it was
Yes.
one of those things, Jarvis, where literally the first thought that came to mind was, and there were so many, but one of the first thoughts. Let me say it this way because pick and choose a thought, but to your point, there has been a lot of emphasis on the Hawks getting better defensively, and we're seeing the dividends of that. But now Nate McMillan's job is going to be, how do you balance that out? How do you help your players to understand the importance of being two-way in an appropriate way, right? So if your mid-range shot is hitting, that should be it. And like you said, get back on defense and get in front of that player so that he can't set his feet, or so that there can't be what didn't happen for the Hawks, which was good spacing, ball movement, good shots, and attacking the basket when they couldn't get the three. And when they could get the three, hey, we'll take that three and we'll make the extra pass to do it. We'll make the extra pass to do it. And it always felt like the Hawks were just a step behind every time the Celtics were coming back on offense. So one of the questions for me, Jarvis, was, well, what if the deep shots don't fall anytime soon? What if they don't? How are the Hawks going to compete with the elite of the East?
They're going to have to do it like what Trae Young has been doing a good job of, and that's getting into the paint and going to the free throw line.
Yep.
Like, you're
Get
going to have to.
A different way.
Because I heard in the interview with Nate McMillan did with our guys, Andy and Randy, talking about shooting the three more. I don't agree with that assessment, because a lot of times people's like, well, they need to keep shooting, shoot or shoot, yeah, Trae Young, yeah, that applies. But John Collins, no, that does not apply. He is not a shooter. He has been more than adequate shooting the 3-point in his career. And he's gotten better at that each and every year, but this year he is struggling. John needs to use his athleticism, get into the paint. He's gotten a little bit better with his ball handle. So I think that the alternative, if you aren't making those shots, making those 3-pointers that you're getting, you have to go ahead and take it to the rack, take it to the hoop, and force the referees to make a call. Because if you are able to get those shots, those open shots in the 3-point, I definitely wholeheartedly believe that you're going to be able to get to the paint, and that's what DeJounte Murray has done. He's shooting pretty solid from the 3-point line. He's not a great 3-point shooter, but I believe that he has the right mindset, and Trae has the right mindset. I just think that Trae needs to continue to shoot, and JC, he needs to go ahead and continue to put the ball on the floor and get to the basket.
Exactly. Play to your strengths until the other part of your game comes together. And your strength is, like you said, getting to the basket. That is what you should do. But I will tell you this. I tend to agree with you. I'm not sure that I agree that the Hawks can even shoot themselves back into making threes, because last night, and don't get me wrong, I'm saying this with a caveat and an asterisk, but last night was one of those few games where you say, man, sure wish we had Gallo and Red Velvet, because what Red Velvet gave you was instant offense, but we understand he didn't really want to come off the bench, and that was one of the challenges that Nate faced with him. But that would have been that secondary instant offense. If you didn't have Bogey, then at least you had Kev Herter. Gallo is someone who can play that 4 and be like a big body in there, right? So when you need some instant points and just somebody to bang, then you could have gotten him in there. And again, I am not suggesting that would have been the panacea, because you've still got to figure out, with the team you have in place, somebody better learn how to shoot a 3 fast. And figure out how to get it in rhythm. But that was one of the things I thought about too. Was like kind of my sidebar thought, like, man, this is where you miss it. But also, Jarvis, where I think there can be some growth and some opportunity there, especially in getting the shots together, is the bench. What you can't do at home bench, because that's where you're the bench mob.
Right.
That's where you're the bench mob. 21 points to their 44, that's not going to cut it. That bench has got to do better.
Absolutely. And when you think about your guys on your best 3-point shooters this year are Adrian Griffin and Aaron Holiday. So those guys got to play at this point, in this moment. So, and I think until we get Bo back or when he's coming back, we don't know, but they're going to have to figure it out right now. And those guys are going to have to continue to shoot because they're shooting at a nice clip. So they're going to have to shoot more when A.J. Griffin comes in the game. And I think he's going to have that green light. And we know Aaron Holiday can be hesitant at times, but when he's feeling it, he needs to go ahead and put those bad boys up, because Lord knows with DeJounte and Trae combined with the bench mob, those guys are going to have open shots sitting out there on the perimeter. That's for sure. Now, speaking of, somebody having everything locked down and what's going on, coming up next, we're going to have Grant McAuley, our Braves resident expert. He's going to come and break it all the way down, 7 days to Sunday. We actually haven't had Grant on our show just yet, but he will be joining us next. But first, before we get there, we have to tell you about betonline.net. Now, we've been talking about the Falcons and the Bears consistently on this show, and the Bears have been dropping 30 points and every time they touch the field ever since the Luke Getsy, the Bears offensive coordinator, has finally figured out how to use Justin Fields. Like, oh, he's mobile. Oh, okay. You can run the ball. Oh, okay. I can call runs for you, not running for your life. That's kind of a little different. I can protect you in a way. So, yeah, the Bears coming in, putting up points. You're trying to figure out what you're going to do. Go to betonline.net, because it is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs, find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for lines and games. Now, you talking about like information. They got that all there for you too. Sports wagering information, live in-game betting, scores. They have podcasts. You guys come to us each and every day for all your ATL sports information. Go for that betting information at betonline.net, because it is the place you need to go, because if you're trying to win some money, that's where you need to be. Now, that over-under is 50 points for Chicago Bears and Atlanta Falcons at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? How are you going to get it? How are you going to make that money? Go to BetOnline today, or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today, because BetOnline is where the game starts.
Hey, guys, your first stop, right? ATL Day Ones. All day, every day, because you want all the good from the ATL sports scene. However, don't stop here. Go to Locked On Sports today for all your national news, any and all of your national news, whether it is football, basketball, baseball, which we're going to get into in a moment. But yeah, definitely if you want the biggest stories, the biggest headlines, and if you want to know reactions from those storylines, check out Locked On Sports today. And listen, you guys love FTC, our For the Culture segment. They got theirs too. It's called Take of the Day. So again, whatever it is that you want to hear about that's on the national scene, check out Locked On Sports today. That's definitely where you're going to get all the tea. Now, if you want all the tea on the Braves or anything Major League Baseball, then you have come to the right place today, because we got our guy who does an amazing postcast for the Braves for the Locked On Sports Atlanta network. But he doesn't stop there. He also has a From the Diamond podcast that is amazing. And of course, he's with 92.9 The Game. And he is also a guest contributor to our partner, our techno partner, 11 Alive. So for those of you who somehow don't know him in the ATL, it's a guy.
Stop playing around. Everybody knows Grant.
Of course they do.
Hey, great to be with you guys.
Yeah, definitely great to have you. So Grant, I wanted to start off, and it may be something that's not a big deal right now, but of course we got information earlier today on Liberty Media, and I'm just going to read it verbatim. That way I don't mess up any aspect of what that announcement was. And you can find that announcement obviously on either the Liberty Media site or a number of outlets, right? But essentially, Liberty Media made an announcement today about where the direction that they are going in, right? So essentially there's going to be a split off. And so my question to you is this: there are a lot of big decisions that are going to be made as it relates to the Braves organization and players. Grant, does this split off, does this announcement by Liberty Media splitting with the Atlanta Braves organization, and I know you'll get a little bit more into it, but does it impact some of the decisions that Alex Anthopoulos has to make for this team?
Yeah, I think ultimately it will, and it's going to have the kind of impact that I think fans are looking for. And without getting into a lot of financial jargon, of which I'm learning as I go as well, cover baseball based on what happens on the field, the results of games, and obviously the things that are built into that. But it's just, I think, a good move in terms of giving the club the upward mobility in its payroll, and to continue that trajectory, as they've been talking about, of becoming a top 5 payroll in Major League Baseball. I mean, the chairman of Liberty Media said, as part of this today, I saw the quote that we expect to be a top 5 payroll. Well, if you expect to be a top 5 payroll and you're making moves like this, it would seem to me like that is something that can be a reality. As I've talked about on From the Diamond, as I've talked about just about anywhere else I've been on 92.9 The Game, look, it may not happen overnight, but the fact is that the Braves have moved into the top 10 in payroll year over year. This has been a trend that I'm sure fans are noticing. We're seeing all the different long-term contracts that have gone out. Yeah, you can't sign everybody, but by and large, the Braves have been doing things over the past 3 to 4 years that, I don't know, even 5, 7, 8 years ago, you would have never thought that are possible. So I think this is kind of the next step, the next evolution in that.
You know what, Grant? I think, it's, all the conversation has been about whether or not Dansby Swanson is going to be able to, re-sign with his team.
Yeah.
And we all know Alex Anthopoulos that they want to do that. We understand that part of it. But from me, just reading between the tea leaves, I try to do that and try to come up with my thoughts or my gut feeling about whether or not he comes back. The thing that everybody's talking about right now that I got a chance to check out is the fact that Vaughn Grissom is down in New Orleans working with Uncle Ron. I call Ron Washington, the third base coach, so I call him Uncle Ron. So Uncle Ron is saying he's going to get him right and have him ready to play that shortstop position if need be. Do you think that's the backup plan if they aren't able to sign Dansby?
I think right now that is a backup plan, but I also, just knowing from what Vaughn Grissom did coming up, I mean, he gave the Braves a big boost at second base, offensively speaking. He's playing out of position somewhere that he really spent next to no time in his professional or amateur career, and was able to come up and really make a splash at the plate. Now, that started to cool off the final 4 to 5 weeks of his run in the big leagues because, look, it's hard to get there. It's even harder to stay there. And keep in mind that Vaughn Grissom, along with Michael Harris, those were 2 of the 3 youngest players in all of Major League Baseball. So this was something that, I don't know that we expected him to get there and stay there and never have to maybe take a step back after what we saw over the final 4 or 5 weeks. So from the development of the player standpoint, it is nothing but a great thing that he's working with Ron Washington, because defensively speaking, there were some questions about whether or not he would stay at shortstop once he got to the big leagues. Secondly, and I think most importantly, is how do you best develop this player? If offensively he's able to stick and stay at the big leagues, then that answers that question. If he's not, though, I still think some time at AAA, and maybe that could be the place that he would start, next year if they do have a shortstop in place, would be the play that the Braves would make. And that might not be the worst thing for Vaughn, because considering how young he is, that is something that I don't view as a big-time setback for the development of the player long-term as a piece of the Braves' future.
Now, Grant, I'm going to take you back a couple years to one of the Super Bowl halftime shows where literally we had Left Shark kind of doing his own thing out there on the Katy Perry halftime show. And I sometimes feel like left field for the Braves was like Left Shark just kind of doing his own thing. Yeah. So my question is to you, do you feel like that's maybe the biggest offseason need for the Braves, or do you feel like there is a number one priority outside of the obvious, which is to re-sign Dansby?
Yeah, I mean, the shortstop thing is clearly going to grab all the headlines. And I've said, and I'll say it here, I still think that the best for both sides is to continue that partnership between Dansby Swanson and the Braves. I think he is the best fit. Yeah, would you love to go out there and drop down the money to pay a huge contract for a Carlos Correa or Trey Turner? Sure. And could Liberty Media conceivably do that right now? Yes, they can. But they seem to be moving in that direction of being the big spenders, and maybe that deal is in the future somewhere. But, long story short, once you put that aside and you figure out how else can we make this club better, there were 2 positions in which the Braves were woefully below average. Left field was one of them, and it kind of bled over into their DH production as well. So finding somebody that can maybe play some left field, finding somebody that could be a DH part of the time as well, maybe that's, something that you could have, hopefully a resurgent Eddie Rosario in your plans, because he had a lost season based on the eye surgery, just wasn't a productive player. But the elephant in the room is, what do you do with Marcell Ozuna and the $37 million that you owe him? So I would imagine Alex Anthopoulos will try to be creative, try to move that money if possible. But when you're one of the least productive players numerically, analytically, however else you want to look at it, in all of baseball since the start of the 2021 season, moving Ozuna for anything is going to be pretty difficult. And I would imagine that the Braves would have to end up kicking in some money to try to get rid of that problem and, simply move on, because I feel like it's kind of reached that point, that critical mass where you got to get more productive. This is not a productive player. This deal's not working out. So that, I think, is also kind of baked into trying to make left field and DH better this offseason.
Grant, one of the things that I've always been impressed by Alex Anthopoulos, he always seems to find one of those reclamation project type moves where like a Tyler Massick and guys coming off the street, so to speak, and coming in and just being one of the catalysts for, the Braves being to help them win 5 straight NL East division titles. So do you see him? Do you see a guy that's already been signed potentially being a Tyler Massick type signing, or do you think that Alex Anthopoulos has one up on his sleeve that he may be taking a look at?
Yeah, there are a couple guys that I think are on the roster right now. One of them was signed this winter. One of them was signed last winter. And the one that they already signed that we've seen a little bit of is Kirby Yates, former All-Star closer, a guy that I think really pitching in 2022 was a big check mark in his rehab process. It wasn't, hey, Kirby needs to come back and be the dominant pitcher that he was in 2019 for the Padres, or this is a failed experiment. I think all eyes were really on 2023 for him, and hopefully he can step into that fray and do that and be a valuable high-leverage arm in the bullpen. The one they signed this winter was Nick Anderson, who was with the Tampa Bay Rays, big-time strikeout stuff, but had to deal with some arm issues. He didn't have Tommy John surgery, but he did have what's called a UCL brace surgery. So they did have to go in and really get everything, I guess, restructured in some way, shape, or form in that elbow and, try to get him back to, where they felt like he could resume his career without having to go the Tommy John route. But he did not throw a pitch in the big leagues last year. However, they do feel like as he comes to spring training that he's going to be ready to contribute in 2023. It's a really low cost, operation. This contract, it's a split contract. If he's in the big leagues, he gets less than $2 million. If he's in the minors, he just gets a couple $100,000, and you've got somebody that could be a key piece of depth. So it's hard to know what kind of player, and really I haven't seen too many players that have come as far as Tyler Massick has from the independents, being out of baseball basically for a period of time, and then being on the mound for some of the biggest outs in the franchise's history. But I think they're always out there. And every once in a while, as long as you're scouting, you're going to come across some players that really surprise you in some really exciting ways. And maybe a couple of bullpen arms will be guys that step in because it's a really volatile position group. It's kind of like running backs in the NFL. You can make a great plan, and year to year, that plan can change based on injuries and attrition. So they're always looking to restock that bullpen.
Yeah. And we'll put a bow on it, Grant, just like Major League Baseball put a bow on everything last night. Of course, we know Max Fried, second place, but that was still his highest ranking and his highest finish for the Cy Young Award for the National League. So still good stuff. Brian Snitker, third place. Buck Showalter, question mark, but we'll move right along with that one because I really want to. It's like, just sidebar. You look and you say, okay, 10.5 games back, and we catch him.
How? Right.
And exactly. Yeah. So how, Clay? And I'm like the fourth one, and he's never gotten past a divisional round. But anyway, what I really wanted to talk about is this, because Jarvis mentioned it on Vaughn Grissom in terms of what Ron Washington is doing to get him to that next level of his skill set. So I want to go back to the exciting day for us, which was the 1-2 punch of Michael Harris, the second, getting the Rookie of the Year, and Spencer Strider right there behind him in second place. Grant, how exciting is it to have those two young key pieces in place doing as much as they did this year as just rookies, but also where do you see them growing in terms of the 2023 campaign for the Braves?
Yeah, I mean, these guys, as we know, the sky's the limit when you explode onto the scene for a club that was woefully underperforming. And when you look at the time in which the Braves turned everything around, it was late May, and two things happened then. Michael Harris II came up from Double-A. Spencer Strider went from the bullpen into the rotation, and then the Braves rode the best record in baseball from that point on. 113 win pace is what the Braves were on, especially once they started that 14-game winning streak, which really turned the whole year around. But looking at those two guys in particular, for Harris, I just feel like it's just going to be more of the same and more of just the polishing those skills. He's an offensive threat. He's a threat on the bases, and he's a Gold Glove caliber center fielder. Even if he didn't get that nomination this year, he's going to be getting one of those. And Spencer Strider did things historically, strikeout-wise, that very few pitchers in the history of baseball have done. We're talking about Kerry Wood, Doc Gooden, guys like that. And in terms of strikeouts per nine, neither one of those guys could really touch what it was Spencer Strider was doing a year ago. And both those guys got long-term contracts in the midst of these great rookie breakouts as well. So the Braves feel great about their future, and they should feel great about these two, regardless of who took home that trophy. Those are two huge reasons why the Braves were able to track down the Mets, win the NL East, and get back into the postseason in 2022.
Indeed.
Speaking of getting back into things, I think Ronald Acuna has been a guy who's been – depending on who you talk to, you talking about one end of the spectrum, oh, they need to trade him, or the other end of the spectrum, like, oh, he can't do no wrong. And I think that at some point, Grant, I feel like we got to come to a medium when it comes to Ronald Acuna, but just can you just speak to like him coming off that surgery and playing in that first year, and I think that and what your expectations are for him next season?
My expectation is that Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to get back to doing the Ronald Acuna Jr. things. I mean, this was a challenging year. I was surprised that the power was down the way that it was. I did not expect that. And I know he had to go through a lot of maintenance, a lot of aches and pains that came with that. But this is a kid that's 24 years old. And if you're only viewing it through the scope of, well, what did he do in 2022? And failing to think about what this kid did from the age of 19 through 23 years old, before the knee injury, and just not think about the impact player that this guy is when he's going and when he's right, then I really can't help you with that. But I will give people a little PSA that can be very helpful for just going on about your day is that Twitter ain't real life. And there might be the crazies that you hear from every possible end of the spectrum that have their own theory about how things should or should not be. That's just not how the Braves are viewing Ronald Acuna Jr. There's no interest in trading that guy, nor should there be. If there was, I would be shocked. I'll be happy to come back on the show and try to unpack what exactly would have gone into that. But that's just not how you build a sustainable winter. This guy having a winter in which he can get back to, just a normal non-rehab based schedule and regimen and come back into spring training, hopefully feeling 100% for real, 100% on that knee, will be the best thing for Ronald Acuna and ultimately for the Braves, because he is a much better player overall than he was in 2022. And even at his worst, he's still better than about 3/4 of the league. So it might be worth thinking about that sometimes too.
Absolutely scary, but man, good stuff. And listen, the one place where you can get the truth on Twitter and you can get hashtag facts is if you go to @Grant McAuley. That's where the truth lies all day, every day. So I encourage you guys. He's such a great follow. I feel like every time I either follow him on Twitter, on social media, or I check him out, and I had the good pleasure of actually sitting with him as a guest on 11 Alive Sports Extra a couple of months ago. It is good stuff. And you know what else is good stuff, especially if you're like us and we're kind of trying to come off the low from last night's Hawks game, you might want a Built Bar in your life. And in fact, you might want a cookie dough puff if we're real about this thing, or 2 or 3 if you're still traumatized from last night. And you can go to built.com and order. Make that order today. Why? Because it's good for you. It's good stuff when you think about 100% real chocolate and the fact that that's only 160 grams of fat. So, and it absorbs pretty quickly, because then you've got the 15 grams of protein that are helpful for you. So again, if you're in ATL traffic, if you are coming away from a Hawks game like we saw last night, go ahead and get yourself a Built Bar cookie dough puff at built.com. Use the Locked On code to get 15% off your first order, because why not? It's the holidays and you guys can start to stock up and give the gift of Built Bars.
Locked On Sports Atlanta family, I got a proposition for you. You know how y'all guys been liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel? We need y'all to do more of that. The people who have not done that, listen up. Listen to me clearly. We're almost at 5,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. So if you have not subscribed, if you have not hit that subscribe button, please, I'm begging you. I don't normally beg, but I'm like Keith Sweat. I'll beg. I'm proud of it. Actually, I'll get down and beg for these doggone subscribers. We're at 4,900. We need 100 more. I'm going to do something silly. I'm going to do something really silly if we hit the 5,000 subscribers. So make sure you go to our YouTube channel, type in the sports that search box, Locked On Sports Atlanta, and we'll pop right up and hit that subscribe button. We're right there for you. But T, this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, and the culture. And sometimes, whatever the hell we want to talk about, because that's just how we get down on this show. Today is no different. Our former colleague, our homegirl, our girl, former WNBA player Neisha Butler, T. She is the first Afro-Latina to launch a STEAM center for children right there in the Big Apple in New York City. She has been doing her thing. The facility offers advanced and fun STEAM classes to students ranging from 6 to 12 years old, T. I don't know about you, but it was just, I always knew it was something special about Neisha Butler. Yeah. But for her to be doing something like this, and as far as introducing minority kids or underprivileged youth, be able to expose them to this type of thing, I think this is just absolutely wonderful.
Yes, and remember, she went to Georgia Tech, so that genius was always there.
Yeah, you kind of have to be kind of smart to get up in that bad boy.
You gotta be right. Their athletes are a little different. But
I
yeah,
couldn't
we had
get in
the
there.
chance to work with her back in the early days of 92-90. And I can remember when she was covering the WNBA games and our NBA games, she was saying that there was just something else pulling her to do something different. So to have this particular, the science, technology, engineering, advanced kind of AI, like gaming, if you will, and math, that's what STEAM is about.
Right.
To introduce that to youth is absolutely amazing. So excited that she is living her dream, and also to be a female in that space.
Right.
Pioneering female is amazing because oftentimes in that space it's very male dominated. So I'm excited for what she is doing. One of these good days we'll have to have her drop by the show and talk a little bit about it, because you guys, these areas are where it happens. I know we talk about sports and we love sports, but really the individuals making a difference in the world are those in that STEAM space.
Right, no doubt about it. My brother is taking full advantage of that. And another thing that I thought I really liked about in that article when he was talking about it is just that talking about generational wealth, changing the narrative of your family, changing that trajectory, right? Because these guys, like people who participate in this industry, they starting out at six figures, and to be exposing these kids at this age to those type of things, to gain a interest into those type of things, those are the type of things that are going to get them into that once they go to school, and then once they go to school, being introduced to that at such an early age, it's going to be an easy transition into that industry and be able to capitalize off of it. So I'm super, super excited about that. But yeah, shout out to Neisha Butler for doing her thing. Now, T, I don't know if I can get some kudos for this one, but Nick Cannon, he's like to spread the wealth, so to speak. Why did I just say that? But yeah, we're gonna roll with that. We're gonna roll with it, T. So apparently, Mr. Nick Cannon, I think he just dropped his 11th or 12th child, 12 on the way, 13, 12 is on the way, all that good stuff. The man said he's paying almost $3 million in child support. T, help me out with this one, because I don't know, I don't know if I should be excited that he has enough money to be able to pay $3 million, or the fact that he has so many kids that he has to pay $3 million. I don't know which way to go on this one, but help me out, T. I'm struggling with this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with he has so many kids that he needs to pay $3 million in child support a year.
Good.
That has to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
He has a payroll.
Yes.
He literally has a payroll.
Unbelievable. I mean, I know that everybody is not made to be a role model, don't get me wrong, but this is really a bad look. And think about it too. You married one of them, Mariah Carey. That's it. So you're okay with adding to the narrative of baby mama and baby daddy? I mean, because that's what you are. And that's what they all are.
Or paymaster.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's just
ATM.
Yeah, it's a sad commentary. And listen, I hear that you love kids and you try to spend, as much time as you can with all of your kids. But at some point, that's the other piece. At some point, some of those kids are really going to start to miss out. You're going to miss out on some formative things for some of them. And then how do you make that decision on which way to go? Because some kids are going to be hurt every single time. Oh, why did dad choose to go to that particular play instead of that game? Or why did dad choose to spend the weekend with so-and-so and not me? Good luck with all that, because apparently you're thinking, to me, more about yourself just because you can versus whether or not this makes any modicum of sense for your children.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, I know, I joke about a lot of that type of money and being able to have it, to be able to spend it like that. But at the end of the day, being a father of two daughters, time matters. I mean, I understand money, you got to have it. I get it. But that time means so much more than money. And I think a lot of times in these situations, the money means more to the parent or the mom versus the child. The child wants time. Child don't care about money. Child wants time. And that's the thing about it, with you having to keep up that certain lifestyle.
That's right.
You ain't gonna have no time to doggone spend with those kids. That's just those are the facts. It's not enough time in the day. I'll go ahead and leave it at that. First of all, I want to thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen today. Make your second listen Locked On Sports today. They have all the national news ready for you. And also, they got something like similar to Florida Culture like we just did. They have the take of the day. You don't know who's going to pop on that bad boy. Tenitra might pop up on that bad boy. John Chuckery might pop on that bad boy. Mark Zeno might pop up on that bad boy because Lord knows he always got the hot take. So make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and or wherever you download your podcast. Wherever you get us, just go and check them out as well. We really appreciate you for that in advance.
We appreciate you guys for stopping by. And tomorrow we got a special guest for you guys as well as we break down Falcons, Bears, and talk keys to the game.
Absolutely. Y'all come back now, you hear?